Greetings, beloved Princeton United Methodist Church community. It's Pastor Jenny here, and I'm reading from 2 Samuel 22, verses 1 and 2. David spoke to the Lord the words of this song on the day when the Lord delivered him from the hands of all his enemies and from the hands of Saul. He said, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer." This is the word of life. Thanks be to God. We are wrapping up our summer lectionary series of looking at the life of David, the cycle of the life of David, starting with Samuel, and we end this time this week. And I'll try to bring a little bit of a wrap up to the saga of David. It is a challenging story in all sorts of ways. We've seen that over the course of the past several weeks. There's a lot to wrestle with, and there's a lot to be learned and gleaned and continue to explore in David's story. But we come to this piece. One of the first things we learned about David in his scripture, in the scripture story of David, is that he is a musician, a psalmist, a poet, a lyricist, and somebody who is writes songs, and most of which are songs to God, prayers to God, speaking of our longings and our hopes and our thanksgivings and our deepest laments and sorrows. We know, too, that David did not write all of the Psalms in our collection of Psalms, in the book of Psalms, but David did write some of them. And this is a psalm. It doesn't fall into our book of Psalms. It is near the end, of course, of David's story, the end of 2 Samuel. And it is a beautiful story, a song of thanksgiving. I know that not all of us are poets. I know that not all of us are people who are going to write music or write songs, but I do wonder if this gives us some invitation to reflect and to respond to God. In our mission statement of the church, we talk about joyfully responding to God's love. And in fact, joy is a posture and a practice. It doesn't always mean that we're feeling happy, but it is a practice to do, to joyfully respond to God. I do think that is part of what David is doing. But even so, even if I were to talk about kind of our some of what is the core to our relationship with God, I think it is responding to God, responding to God's love, responding to God's presence, responding to God's grace, responding to God's invitations. And so I wonder how you would respond to God today. And I wonder too, part of David's response to God here is declaring what God is, who God is to David. Now, for most of us, again, this is complicated and many things. God is many things to us. But in this moment today, as you reflect on either recent events or a recent season in your life, maybe the whole of your life, who is God to you? How do we respond to who God is? How do we name it? David talks about God as a rock, as a fortress, as redeemer, as refuge, and many other things throughout that 22nd chapter of 2 Samuel. I encourage you to read it and to see. We're going to pick a few of the verses. It's kind of long, so we're going to read some of them on Sunday. But I wonder who God is to you. How would you declare? What name would you call God, or what adjectives, or how would you compare God to something like a fortress, a refuge, in the way David is? And I wonder, as you contemplate that, as you consider that, maybe there is a verse of poetry that comes forth. Maybe it is put to song. Maybe a song is what helps you name how you're feeling, how you're responding to God today. But I hope that it doesn't just stop with naming it. I hope that you might actually share this with God. Of course, God always knows, right? There's always a way that God is hearing what's happening within our hearts and our minds and our spirits. But it's a different thing to talk about it with somebody else, which is really big and important, or writing it in a journal or whatever it is, or thinking in our heads, but to spend time like David, declaring this to God. So saying to God, this is who you are to me, God. Thank you for this. Responding to God directly from our hearts is another piece to this as well. So a few invitations as we wrap up our story, our exploration of David's story this summer. We celebrate communion this Sunday as well. Our communion offering is our Arm in Arm, our Princeton area food bank, and you're invited to donate to that. And a reminder too that we actually have a place to receive canned goods for Arm in Arm in the hallway that leads to the fellowship hall. There, if you go, instead of turning kind of left to the fellowship hall, if you go kind of straight down the hall, there's some bins and there's a place to donate there. So we encourage you to donate for the communion offering financially, but also anytime you want to bring canned goods, non-perishables for Arm in Arm, there's a spot for you to do that in the church. So on the 8th, on September 8th, that is our fall kickoff. We encourage you to, this is our time, it's after Labor Day, schools are back in session, summer vacations have wrapped up, and we start up our program year again. So our music ministry and our children's choirs and youth choirs, chancel choir, bell choir, all start up again. Our small groups are going to be starting up again. Our kind of full, more robust programming for Compassion Camp, Godly Play is happening again, and we encourage you to be part of that. We encourage you also to bring a friend, to invite somebody else to join you as we begin this new program year together. We'll start a new worship series called Salt and Light on September 15th. We'll be having our all-church picnic out at Mercer County Park. And then on September 22nd, we begin a newcomers group, a time to help people who are newer among us find ways to engage deeper in the life of the church through relationships and through participation in a variety of ways. And all of you who have maybe been part of the church in a while but haven't heard some of these things, or maybe never went through a class like this, you're invited to come as well. We do all sorts of things to help you engage not only in the life of the church, in terms of the who is PUMC, but also we talk about discipleship and what some of our next steps are. So maybe you're feeling a little itch to explore more concretely where God is inviting you to next. This might be a great place to start. So you're welcome to do that as well. So you can look in this and other places for more information there. Talk to me, talk to Pastor Taylor. We would all love to talk with you. So I look forward to seeing you very soon. Remember that I am always privileged, blessed, honored to be on this journey with you. Remember that you are created for joy. We are enough because God is enough. Thanks be to God for that. We'll see you very soon.